we're joined with Anders Nelson, assistant women's volleyball coach for the University of Kentucky and former All-American for the Ball State men's volleyball team. Now, Anders, you made the transition from playing into coaching. What has that transition been like the last couple of years?
Right out of college, it was pretty tough. I definitely wanted to be on the court more than I wanted to be on the sidelines. But since I've been coaching, I've learned to love it just as much as playing. And the only difference is I think you get a little more nervous on game days as a coach, just because you feel a little less in control of the situation.
Yeah. Now, you were just able to beat Lipscomb, swept them in 3-1. The interesting storylines for this one was an assistant coach on the other team for Lipscomb, Billy Abel, your teammate at Ball State. What was that like coaching against a former teammate of yours?
Fortunately, if you go to Ball State, you get to do it quite a bit, just because there's so many of us coaching women's volleyball. I got the opportunity to do it against Todd Chamberlain at Kansas last year, and it's not really about us, it's about the teams and about the girls, but it definitely makes it a little more fun when there's a familiar face on the other sideline.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a difference between the men's and women's games. What's been the biggest adjustment for you making that transition?
I guess I started my volleyball, coaching and playing around the women's game more so than the men's game, so it's kind of going back for me. But offenses are run very differently. There's less back row attack in the women's game, more slides. So that would probably be the biggest adjustment for me, is getting back into the thought process of women's rotations and how kind of the women's teams do it. But other than that, I think athletes are athletes, just coaching very similarly.
Yeah. And talking about your time at Ball State, it seems like Ball State is always able to produce tons of coaches coming out. What is it about that school and being able to produce so many volleyball coaches?
I think the first thing is that when you're recruited, one of their pluses for going there is that the alumni connections you can make in the coaching world. So if you're interested in coaching as a recruit, Ball State's definitely a place you want to go to. And then also the opportunities while you're there are awesome. I had the opportunity to coach a couple state championships for a high school team and a national championship with a club team. So there's just so many good coaches still in the area that you have to learn from, that you just learn quickly, and like I said, learning from great people in a short amount of time.
Yeah, and talking about your experiences in college, obviously you had great opportunities to learn from several coaches, whether it was Joel Walton or being an assistant coach with Steve Shondell at Burrs. What have you taken from some of those coaches and applied to your coaching philosophy?
Definitely just emphasis on ball control. When you live in Muncie, that's the one thing that's stressed. And coaching with Steve and Munciana kind of uses Steve's philosophies on ball control still. So a lot of those techniques, things with passing and defense and setting and things like that, I definitely still use here. And now working for another Ball State alum, and Craig, he does a lot of those same things at Kentucky still. So those things, I guess, have just kind of been added to my repertoire as a coach, and I see them every day still with Kentucky.
All right, and final question for you, Anders. What would be your advice to a college player right now who might be wanting to go into the coaching ranks once he graduates?
Make sure you take advantage of your opportunities while you're in college. Don't expect to graduate and just get a coaching job. Make connections with local clubs, make connections with local high schools, and make sure you're using your time while you're in college to kind of, fine-tune your coaching abilities.